Hey everyone, I'm Adam Pascarella, and welcome to episode 14 of The Power of Bold. Hey everyone, thanks so much for tuning in to this episode of The Power of Bold. I hope everyone's having a great holiday and is psyched for 2018. I know that it's going to be a great year. So I'm excited to share with you my conversation with Dylan Owen, who is a rap artist from New York. Dylan has quite the story. He grew up in Orange County, New York, and started experimenting with music and battle rap at a young age. He continued to improve his craft and released his first EP in 2008. From there, Dylan released several other EPs and albums, including his EP Keep Your Friends Close and There's More to Life. Dylan has landed national TV sync placements in MTV's Miley Cyrus The Movement documentary and Sci-Fi's WWE SmackDown. He was also named a top 15 Next Big Sound artist by Billboard.com, and he's open for artists like Mac Miller, Wiz Khalifa, Chitty Bang, and Asher Roth. Currently, Dylan is working on his next album, which will be released in the near future. So in our conversation, we talk about Dylan's childhood, how he got into rap, how he thinks about his creative process, how he prepares to go on stage in front of a screaming audience, and his upcoming album, which he's really excited about. So with that said, let's get to the interview. I'd now like to welcome on the podcast Dylan Owen. Dylan is a well-known rap artist located in New York City, and we're currently sitting in his studio in Alphabet City. So Dylan, thanks for coming on the podcast, and thanks for inviting me to your studio.
Yeah, of course, man. Thank you for having me on.
Of course. And so to start off, what are you really working on now? What's taking up most of your time?
I'm working on a new album now. That's definitely the main thing. And I'm also working on videos for a lot of the new songs, and it's been a long process. I took a long time to think about these new songs before I even really started writing them. And I'd say I'm like 3/4 through the process now. So that's the main thing I kind of get up every day and work on.
Very cool. And so 3/4 the way done. When do you think you'll be ready to release it?
I don't know exactly, but I'd say early 2018.
Oh, very nice. That's very exciting. And Thanks. We'll make sure to tell our listeners about it when it comes out.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you.
So I'd like to kind of start out at the beginning, going over your story, how you got into music and rap and everything like that. So you grew up in upstate New York, right? I think it's Orange County, around there.
Yep, Orange County, New York.
And so when you were a kid, like when did you really start getting into music? Do you have any early memories of that?
Yeah, definitely. I have a lot of memories of it. Some of my first memories of it enjoying music were driving to school in my dad's car. He would play mixtapes at the time, burnt CDs, and the Beastie Boys were one of the artists that would always appear again and again, and I just loved hearing those Beastie Boys tracks. So that was like probably the 4th grade. I remembered that as a prominent experience for some reason. But probably around 7th grade, I started writing little poems and rhymes. And before that, I was an avid drawer. I would love to sketch. And I was your kind of archetypal like kid alone in his bedroom sketching characters that he would think of in his head. And then that sort of formed its way into songwriting. Like I remember sometimes writing songs in those pads, but it wasn't even to music or anything. I didn't really relate the two. It was just like writing at the time. But probably around 7th grade, started writing, I guess you could call it poetry.
Cool. And like, what was your first song? Do you remember what it was called or anything like that?
The first song would be this one called The Introduction, and very fitting title for a first song. And I remember I recorded it in my mom's house on just one of those performance microphones. It sounded awful, but I didn't even know at the time. And I remember uploading it to my MySpace page, and it was the first thing I uploaded, and I had some lo-fi photo that I took of myself holding the mic there, and I was pretty excited about it. And it was, the beats for it were like just things I found online and kind of mixed together. And I don't know, I just had no idea what I was doing, but yeah, it's cool. I still have that recording though.
Oh, do you? At the early stage then, it sounded like more you were just experimenting, kind of fooling around and trying to learn as quickly as possible. Is that right?
Yeah, it was like I definitely didn't know anything about the technical side of it in terms of like microphones or how to record or how to get beats or how to find them or anything. I didn't understand any of that stuff. There really was no music scene happening that I knew of in our town at the time. So it was really just me wanting to write and express myself. So I didn't even like equate the idea of me being an artist with the artist that I listened to. It was just expression.
Well, besides the Beastie Boys, who else was really inspiring you at that time?
At that time, I also had a CD of the Shins, the band from Seattle. So I had that. That was something I loved. I also had a Block Party CD. I remember that. And if you remember back in this era, it wasn't like now where you have access to so much music. It was like if you have a CD, you really listen to it a lot and you know every word, you know inside and out. You read the liner notes, all that. So that's the way I was with those CDs. And then I got, I'm trying to think of the exact chronology of them, but I remember getting Black Star, which was Mos Def and Talib Kweli, getting that CD per an older friend's recommendation. He told me, he was like, man, just go get this CD. He was really into hip hop. He was very into freestyling. And so he told me that, and that was awesome. And then I also remember getting the Black Album by Jay-Z and listening to it inside and out.
Cool. And in the beginning too, so you're getting inspiration from all these other artists out there. Did you really play any instruments, or was it more about just rapping, singing? It was just
basically rhyming. It like wasn't even the physical act of rapping yet. It was just a writing thing, and rhyming in my head. But my older brother played guitar, and that was a big thing I looked up to, and I just felt like that was something I would never be able to do, was actually play an instrument. So it was a very private thing, very much like something I would do when I got home from school in my own time in my bedroom. But then it turned into like rap battling at school and being kind of outgoing with it too. So it sort of fulfilled both my introspective and my more outgoing, like, social side.
Yeah. And how did you really transition from simply rhyming into rapping, doing your rap battles? Can you?
I think it was from battling.
Oh, yeah.
It was battling, and then we had these things that they weren't poetry slams, but it was like you had to stand up in front of the class this was 7th grade. You had to stand up in front of the class and basically deliver a poem you wrote. And my buddy Austin, who was in the class with me, shout out to A-Game, he would write these pieces that would kind of compete with mine, and it'd be like this healthy competition thing. So I'd want to get up there and like be able to do it and have all these rhymes, and I just remember us two like getting super, super into it, way more than everyone else in the class.
Yeah, I remember I saw some documentary, some 60-minute piece on Eminem, and he always said when he was younger, he tried to gather up as many words. He would read the dictionary like from back to front, trying to get as much vocabulary into his brain as he could. I think he called it stacking ammo or something like that. And so were you kind of along those lines too, just trying to think of as many rhymes or words that you could use in these rap battles?
A little bit, yeah. It was kind of like that. Like I really felt like I had to practice and I had to get better. And a lot of the kids, now we're sort of like drifting into high school when I would get more into battling, because I basically showed up as a freshman, and my older brother had already been in the school, and everyone was like, oh, I know his little brother raps, whatever. So I felt like I had to, I kind of really had to show up if I was going to do that, because it was all these older kids. So I did feel like I had to be polished and come in sounding good. Yeah. I took it very seriously.
I'm sure. And you could tell in your art, your music. And so can you talk about how you first started creating your first EP? I think it was in 2008. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. They were songs that I wrote. I think I first wrote them just on paper. I remember the bedroom I wrote them in and everything. And I didn't really understand the concept of an EP or an album or whatever, but I wrote them, and one of my closest friends' older brothers, who now I still work with to this day, Devin Arney, he is a jazz guitarist, and he had a microphone and he had equipment to record, and he had a way to make music and produce music. So he told me, he's like, hey man, I can help you out. I can record you. So I would show up with some lyrics I had written, and then I would kind of finish them around these beats that he would make. And it's so funny listening back, because I do think the beats fit my personality, like still to this day. But back then I had no idea how to even describe what I wanted. You know, it was just completely luck of the draw. So yeah. But actually there is one thing though before that I think inspired it, is my older brother's band at the time. They would do the Battle of the Bands, and that was like the big thing in our high school. And they had a trumpet player, and it was kind of a ska rock band. And they invited me to rap with them when I was a freshman, to kind of come out and like pop out at the end of their set. So I did that, and I loved it. Like those band practices, I would write so much. I would show up with like 5 pages of lyrics, like super, super into it. And so then after that, their band didn't really stay together, but the guitarist James, him and I would play open mics in cafes and coffee shops, and he would just play acoustic guitar and I would rap over it. So those songs were actually the first ones I recorded with Devin, but then me and Devin did more of the like more produced stuff. Right. That wasn't just acoustic and vocals.
And so Devin, was he kind of like your first mentor, you'd say?
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. And at that time, you're recording the tracks with him. You're about to release the EP into the world. And so what are you thinking? Are you nervous or excited, or a little bit of both?
I was completely excited. And I was just like so excited. And I just did everything myself. I would go in. I think I made the artwork in MS Paint, like actually in the program MS Paint. And it's a photo of me, and I like somehow blended other photos. It's me in my bedroom with all this writing on the wall behind me. So I did that, and I took it to my grandpa, who owned a print shop locally, and he printed out the covers for me, and I bought jewel cases and made the CDs, and I was just giving them out to everybody I could, and playing cafes and playing open mics and trying to sell one here and there for $5, whatever. So that was the way I kind of started building up a small amount of music funds that I was then able to use to pay for more recordings and do it, print better artwork and that kind of stuff.
So you're releasing this EP in high school. What do your friends or even other people in high school think? Were you really the cool kid now in the school, or how did that work?
I don't know. I don't know what they thought of it. I would love to know. I was just so enthusiastic about it that I didn't care what anybody thought, and I wasn't really going to let anything hold me back. So I just was showing it to as many people as possible. I think, honestly, most people just didn't have context for what it was. Most people didn't listen to underground hip hop in my town. So I think that people were probably just like, he's doing his own thing, Right.
Well, I guess, going along with that. So you're first starting out, and how do you really get discovered? I think a lot of entrepreneurs, musicians, creators struggle with this, right? Because there's so much content out there. Every person has 16 hours a day of attention, right? And how do you really break into that, especially when you're first starting out and have few to little resources? Like, how did you do it, and how could you maybe extrapolate any lessons from that?
I think what I did is I just did the only thing I had access to, which was performing locally. So I would play at these open mics, and I would, make one friend at one show, and then I would play at a coffee shop and invite all my friends, and then like maybe make a few new connections, whatever. And I kind of did that and tried to build it as much as I could. And then probably around my senior year of high school, I was able to start opening for some more regional acts that were outside of just our town or the neighboring town, whatever. And that allowed me to just open up my network a bit. And this is still like MySpace time sort of at this point in time. Like I remember my buddy forced me to make a YouTube page at one point. He's like, dude, you gotta like make a YouTube page and upload your stuff on YouTube. Like, and now it's just, that's so obvious if you like start doing something. But to me, that was just like the last thing on my mind. I really just wanted to express myself and also document my life. That's like, to this day, the main thing that I try to do with music is just get everything that I've been through down in song form or on paper and make sure that it's all properly documented the way that I really experience it.
Right. And yeah, going back, so you start out kind of just at the grassroots level, trying to see one person, have your music in front of one person, then from there just keep going up and up, just keep expanding. And there's really no easy and quick way to do it, right? It just takes a lot of hard work. Yeah,
definitely. I think so. I mean, at the time though, it really wasn't hard work to me. It was just, that was all that I knew. I was just doing every opportunity that I had the chance to do. Like I remember being so hungry to play shows that just anything that came up, I would be going to play these shows just at an address that I didn't even know what it was. And like there were shows I'd show up and it was like a muddy field with like some guy and, you know, a boombox kind of setup, like just these crazy shows. And me and my DJ at the time, like we just have so many memories of these hilarious early beginnings.
Well, can you share one? Share a story from that.
Yeah, like, I'll share one. So one of our favorites is I played at this classic rock festival, and by festival, I mean, it was like 4 people in a backyard type of thing. And I don't think we knew that it was a classic rock fest going in, and we just showed up and it was like, everybody was like a middle-aged classic rock fan with classic rock t-shirts. And then we're up there doing this indie hip hop. It was just like so hilariously out of place. There's a lot of that.
Yeah, just a lot of experimentation, kind of, and just putting yourself out there. It seems like.
Yeah, definitely.
And so, I think in 2009 you released "How to Stay Young," that EP, and then 2010 is "Senioritis." So, how did your musical style, change between your first EP and those two, or did it change at all?
It really, I don't think it really changed at all. I think it was just natural, like, progression, me getting a little more comfortable, learning to be myself a little bit more. And yeah, I don't know. I think like during that time too, I met Nico, who still produces, pretty much all my stuff now. And I started working with him, but like Devin was still recording on the tracks and everything. So I really don't think it changed too much. I think it was just me getting a little bit older, me, you know, being confident enough to completely be myself and do the style that I want to do.
Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, you released, I mean, those 2 EPs pretty quickly, right, one year after the other. And do you think I guess maybe your creative process, has it changed at all since that time? I mean, I guess I'm sure it has. You were in high school, and obviously now you're not.
Yeah, I think I'm a little bit more in control of it now. I can kind of take the approach I want to take with a song, but I actually purposely like to reignite the way that I originally wrote songs, which was just messing around on a keyboard, messing around on guitar, because I knew how to play a little bit at that point in time in high school, and just mess around a little bit and pair that up with some words that I've already thought of, and then kind of fill in the blanks with new words that fit the music and everything, and give it a structure, all that kind of stuff. And to this day, that's like still how I set out to write every song. Mm-hmm. And it definitely doesn't go that way every time. Like sometimes it just works better being fully inspired by a beat that's already made, or sometimes I'll write it completely on guitar, completely on keys. But that's like the baseline of how I still do it. So I think the process is just hopefully has improved over time.
Right. And so at that time, like I said, you released the Senioritis EP in 2010, and then you go to college right after that, right? You go to Cornell.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so you're there for how long?
I was there for 1 year.
1 year, and then you decided to come back to New York City. So can you talk us through the thinking of when you did that?
Yeah, basically I loved Cornell, and it was really hard to leave there, because it was a real college experience. You know, it was this beautiful campus and amazing new people and meeting these awesome strangers in my life and everything. But I felt like I was a little bit incomplete because I wasn't pursuing music as much as I wanted to be. I wanted to be living, breathing, and sleeping music. So I was able to do that in New York. So that was kind of the catalyst for me.
Right. And the long-term plan was to stay out in the city here and, just keep improving, keep meeting people and that sort of thing.
Yeah, pretty much. I really didn't have too much of a long-term plan. All I knew was I wanted to keep documenting my life, right? Mm-hmm. And at Cornell, I had gone through this breakup with this girl, not someone from Cornell, but that basically inspired the whole EP, Keep Your Friends Close, the next one. Right. And so my mission at the time was really just to make Keep Your Friends Close and finish it and put it out. And then I would figure out where to go next from there. And that's kind of still how, not only how I make music, but how I live my life now, is I'm just thinking of the project I'm making and I sort of live for that project, and then I see it through, and then I just figure out what to do.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a little bit like all or nothing, but that's the way it is.
No, but it seems like a good way of, accomplishing a huge long-term goal, right? You can't just, I guess, shoot for the end right away. You have to break it up into little steps and then accomplish that first step, then the next one. Do you think of it like that?
Yeah, I do. It gets, I get so into the project that I'm working on, because it's also my life. So it's like the songs I'm writing about, they're the things that I'm thinking about going through at the time. They're the new experiences that I'm trying to process, and my music helps me work through that stuff. So yeah, I think it's like sometimes it does sort of just feel like this one big step rather than small steps, if that makes any sense. And it's frustrating sometimes for how long it takes for me to get music out. I wish I could just get it out quicker, but I think I really feel the most inspired when I've actually have lived through it and I really have something new to say. And that's when I really feel motivated enough to put a whole new thing together.
Right. And yeah, so I'd like to go back and talk a little bit about Keep Your Friends Close, what you were mentioning. And so it seems like after you released that EP, it kind of blew up, right? You were getting all these downloads on YouTube and other sites. And then I think you had some TV placements in a Miley Cyrus documentary and a show on Sci-Fi, I think. So at this time, as you're getting more and more recognition, what's going through your head?
I think that stuff was over the period of like a few years.
Yeah.
So it definitely, nothing ever felt like I was getting a ton of recognition at once or anything like that. Like there have been little moments here and there where I feel like a lot of fans reaching out. But overall, I'm just kind of hawk-eyed on like the next thing, and just really excited about the next project. But it was so cool that Keep Your Friends Close. Like, one thing I think has been really cool actually with Keep Your Friends Close is that I feel like people are still discovering it now and reaching out to me about it. And I remember like uploading it on the first day, and it wasn't a flood of people discovering it or anything. It's very slow and gradual. And I think that is just how it's meant to be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and at that point, so you built up a fan base before that, obviously, and you release that EP and you're releasing music all the time. How do you really juggle the tension between your old fans wanting you to perform in a certain way or create music in a certain way versus like you as an artist wanting to go in a different direction? It seems like a lot of musicians and artists kind of face that tension or that problem. So how do you deal with that?
I notice a lot of artists I'm a fan of face that for sure. I think I've been lucky because I really like the style of music I already make, and that's what I want to keep making. I don't ever see myself as I want to drastically change styles or anything like that. But I think you have nothing to worry about as long as you're giving 110% as an artist and you are being completely honest with what you want to express. and how you want to document your life, then it should come out good, and it should be something that the fans enjoy.
Right. Just, I guess, kind of being just true and honest with them is just the best way to go, right? And just being authentic to yourself is
Yeah. I meant like authentic to yourself with your expression when you're making music.
Yeah.
Like, I think the big thing that nobody wants to say is that a lot of artists will change their sound because they think it's going to give them a bigger audience. And I think that that's such a arbitrary way of making music. Like, I don't know. It's just a weird, like, that's weird. It's like way too businessy. I think you should just be completely honest and express yourself how you really want to. And then that's going to get you where you need to go.
Right. And then as I was, researching for this interview, I went on YouTube and looked up a couple of your music videos, and I was looking at the comments. It's probably a dangerous thing to do. I don't know if you look at YouTube comments of yourself.
I look at them, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I saw one where they said, surely these lyrics of you will be tattooed on my body. And like, what do you think of when you see that from your really passionate fans that are really into your music?
It's incredible. That's really, I don't know what else to say. It's beyond incredible. It really makes me feel like people truly love the lyrics and they connect with them, and it means something to them in their life that I'll probably never fully understand. Because when I write them, it means something to me in my life, and it's so cool that it has that other meaning and that other life for them. So that's incredible.
Yeah, and I guess even when you're performing live, which is an entirely different thing, when you see the audience members and your fans just like repeating the lyrics back to you, that must be such an incredible feeling too.
Yeah, it is. I definitely remember the first show where that ever happened. Cause I remember like that wasn't the case. I felt like nobody in an audience ever knew me besides my friends for a long time. But then I do remember when people started to know the lyrics, how cool I thought that was.
Yeah. And so I guess just even going on that. So when you're going out for a live performance, right, you're in the back, and you've opened for a bunch of big acts like Wiz Khalifa, I think, and Mac Miller and some of these other people. And so when you're about to go out in front of, thousands of people, are you nervous? Are you excited? Like, what are you thinking at that time?
I think I'm a little nervous for sure. Yeah, I am. I try to practice a lot though before I have a show, especially before any type of like new environment show like that I haven't done before. So usually I feel good about the set, and I'm really excited about the live set now because now I feel like it finally matches what's in the recordings, because I play with trumpet, violin, guitar, keys, rather than only DJ. And I think that definitely like fits more of the instrumentation in the track. So I'm super excited about it now.
Yeah, I don't know many rappers that have violins as in the background.
I love the violin.
Yeah, I think it's awesome.
Gabe Valley, who plays it for me, he's like unbelievably talented, and he plays on all the recordings too.
That's really cool. I guess just performing live, like, is there any equivalent for people that aren't artists or that aren't going to be on stage in front of thousands of people? Is there really any equivalent to the feeling you get out there, like in normal life, or is it just its totally own unique experience?
I think if you can think of something that you do that you're very proud of, and it is something that there's a lot of build up to it. Mm-hmm. So it's almost this kind of release when you're done. Or not when you're done, but like when you're doing it.
Like giving like even like a presentation in your office.
Yeah, or like if you remember in school, when it's kind of like taking a test in a way. Yeah. It's like has that same sort of anticipation, and also you want to do it right and you feel good when it's done, that type of thing.
Right. Do you have any advice for people that are in a similar situation like that? Maybe they're anxious or afraid before they go on stage and perform. So do you have any tips for them?
Yeah, I would say, and I'm definitely still learning too. I have so much to learn about performing, but I think something that has helped me out is I try to think about all the different aspects of it. So not only think about remembering the words, not only think about all that, but try to think about everything. Think about which way you're going to be facing in the venue, and is it going to look weird? Like, think about what you're going to wear. Think about that kind of stuff. And, don't overthink it. Like, you got to be natural too, but it helps to at least think through those things and make sure if you're feeling anxious about it that you have some sort of way that, you can realize like it's going to be okay.
So do you visualize before every single performance you have, at least to some extent?
Yeah. Definitely. Yeah.
And that just gets you in the mood and the right mental framework to
that's like when I'm practicing, usually that's kind of what I'm doing. I'm just running through it over and over again in my head and with the live musicians and everything.
Right.
Just picturing being in the moment and how I want it all to be.
Mm-hmm. And so, I'd like to talk about your latest album, There's More to Life, which was released in 2015. And I guess to start off, do you have any interesting stories about how you created that album, or any stories about the inspiration behind any of the songs?
Yeah, definitely. That was made half living here in the city and then half moving back home after college. And I was living at home, I was kind of like in this weird place, I think, because a lot of my friends had moved away from our hometown. So there was a lot of thought about how things have changed in our hometown. And then also a lot of thought about New York City life and how it relates to small town life. So that was a lot about what inspired me for it. And the reason why I wanted to call that one an EP rather than a full-length album, I felt like I had a lot more to say about my last few years on there, but I wanted to just put out an EP so that I could continue working on a kind of like bigger project. So this bigger album that I'm working on now, this is going to have everything I want to say.
Oh, cool. And I guess, so how does New York City really inspire you as you go about writing music or even performing? How does it inspire you?
I think that living in the city is a true test of independence and of self-determination. I think the city is a pretty solitary place. It's a pretty lonely place, like everybody says. And so I think it's inspiring because it's challenging. It's like very much real life here. You don't have the comfort of something you're familiar with. It's very new. And I think for me, has been a place where I've been able to spend a lot of time with myself, thinking about what I want to write about, what I want to say, and just to live through like some new friendships and new experiences here, and reflect on my past, but also think about the future a bit. So it has been, New York City has definitely sparked something for me.
Mm-hmm. So you have that in combination with your childhood, Orange County, New York, your upbringing too.
Yeah.
So you rely on both of them as you're going about.
Definitely.
Yeah. Right. And so for your next album, like you said, you're working on right now. I guess if you had to describe it like in a few words, how would you go about doing that?
I would say it is my attempt to cover everything, pretty much. It's my attempt to cover pretty much everything I want to say, besides a few things, which I'm leaving for songs like right afterwards, which I'm already starting to write to. So it's kind of like I have all these different experiences in my head, and I want to put them down on paper somehow. And so this new album for me is a way of doing that. And I also definitely think it's me being myself to the fullest that I can be. I feel very free of any kind of holding back, any kind of like, I need to be a certain genre or whatever. I just feel like I can just be myself.
Yeah. Is there any one experience that you're willing to share with us behind one of the songs that you're writing for it?
Yeah. Let me think. Yeah, actually, one I can talk about is there's one that's going to be a tribute to my grandpa who passed away in 2015. So I kind of like alluded to it on There's More to Life, but there's a full song about that on this new one.
Yeah.
So I'm excited about that.
That'll be cool.
Yeah.
And so I guess compared to years ago, I know I asked you this question before, but how do you see yourself transforming as an artist for this upcoming album? Or do you see any transformation whatsoever?
Yeah. Well, I don't know. Honestly, it's kind of hard for me to say because just of my bias or whatever, but I think that I'm like so curious to show it to other people and see if they perceive it differently. I always think of my music as I'm doing the same thing. As always, I'm just trying to document new experiences, but same exact way. But of course, there are small little changes, like recording in a different studio in the city and also recording here in the apartment sometimes in the city. So, you know, there are definitely some like technical changes, but overall, I'm just trying to give it 100%, you know, show up and just make the best music I can.
Yeah. And as you're going about writing your songs, and, you know, it seems like kind of like a solitary process to some extent. I guess in the beginning when you're just trying to find inspiration and trying to get the first couple lyrics down. But then do you rely on a group of people to kind of give you advice, or how does that work?
Honestly, the only people are just my friends. And I don't really give them much of a chance. I kind of show it to them once it's already recorded and already like pretty far along. Yeah, because it honestly is it's a very solitary process.
Right.
It's a lot of me just sitting and thinking, and it's probably like too solitary. I think I've probably a little bit too much alone time, but it's a lot. It feels a lot like writing a book or something.
Mm-hmm. And do you ever talk to Devin to get his advice on some things?
Yeah, like Devin just played guitar on a new track like 2 weeks ago. Yeah, so he's still totally involved. And Nico, my buddy who I mentioned from upstate, he goes by the producer named Skinny Atlas, and he is producing all the new beats on the album. And him and I talk every day pretty much. Mm-hmm. And he's always working on the production while I'm here working on the lyrics.
Right. And so, sorry to go back, you said it's like writing a book, creating an EP or an album. So do you start like with chapter 1, I guess, or do you have like a general outline of how the album's going to go? Or is it more of just creating one song and then the next song and then the next one?
It is kind of like creating one then the next one. It's more like that. It's not really super planned out. I try to just let it be natural, but it weirdly falls together in this way that could be like chapter.
Right.
But I mean, music it's of course different than a book in that way too. Like there are gaps, whatever.
Mm-hmm. And I guess, what do you think about creativity in general? I know that you were saying you use your own life and influences as an inspiration, but do you try to look for as much originality as possible, or do you think about combining ideas, or trying to find some innovation that way, or how do you think about creativity?
It's an interesting question. I guess I feel like I just try to just do my thing. And it might sound a little stupid, but I try to just let the words just pop into my head. Yeah. And a lot of times it will be, and I've heard a lot of other people say this too, a lot of times it'll be when you don't expect it. Like I'll be, doing something completely unrelated to music, and I'll get a few lyrics that just pop into my head as I'm walking down the street, and those will stick with me. And then I'll be like, what's that about? Why is that popping into my head? And I'll think about the experience, and from there it kind of blooms into a song. So I think I just let it come naturally, and that's probably why it takes me like 3 years to release a project.
Well, no, I've read up on creativity a little bit too, and it seems like people are the most creative when their subconscious is kind of speaking to them. It's when they least expect it. You're just so in the weeds of a certain project or song as you may be, and then you're just walking down, Third Avenue or something, and it comes into your head.
I could completely see that, yeah. And then I'll get a ton of ideas too if someone new comes in, let's say, to sing on a chorus or to make a collab song or something like that. Then it just opens up this whole other door of ideas as well. But yeah, I try to just stay in my own box, my own creative box.
Yeah. What do you think about, or do you even consider like the macro aspect of music? So like, if you look in like 2010, 2011, I think around then, like EDM was becoming really popular. And then you'd see some of these like really mainstream artists kind of, alter their music in a way to embrace those trends. And so do you even consider that at all, or does it play a factor?
To be honest, I literally don't consider it.
Yeah.
No, I don't. And yeah, I just don't. It's also like my music tastes don't really consider it either. I'm I'm just in my own world. I listen to just whatever I'm into at the time. I love researching old music and reading about it and reading about the history. Like, I think I'm the farthest guy from being interested in types of trends.
Right.
But yeah, I don't know. I just, for me, it's more about like making sure that I'm getting across what I want to.
Right. I know you don't, like you said, you don't listen to, or you don't follow current trends, but do you have an opinion on like the state of rap today? Like where the genre is?
I'm a huge fan, so definitely do. I think that as much as people knock rap nowadays, that in the underground nowadays, there's amazing music being made. And I think people like Open Mike Eagle, people like Dessa, Astronautilus, Chesky, those people are making amazing music. I think there's a lot of great stuff being created, but I do think the challenge now is it's so easy to upload music to the internet that it is very saturated. It feels like everyone and their mother has a SoundCloud page.
Right. And so how did you discover those particular artists then? Is it just kind of word of mouth or something else?
Yeah, kind of word of mouth and going to shows too. Like some of them I would go to a show of someone I'm a fan of, and then I'd see the opener, and I think the opener is awesome.
Yeah. I guess you mentioned SoundCloud, so I would like to ask you just briefly about just the business model of music nowadays. And you have, like the Spotifys of the world, SoundCloud, which I guess was struggling or is struggling for a little bit, Apple Music. So it seems like less money is being made on the sale of the tracks themselves, and more is about like the live performances and things like that. And so how do you think about like the current state of the business model of music, and how does that play like into your marketing and things like that?
Well, I think as in completely independent DIY artist, I think I just have to exist in whatever is going on at the time. Yeah. People seem to be listening to music on Spotify now, so I'm definitely going to make sure I'm on Spotify. But I think when you have people like Taylor Swift, Kanye West, these sort of people, like their decisions influence what everyone is doing. So I think I like to observe. I like to keep track of what's going on, but I try not to get too caught up in it, because I think to an extent I have to just do what I'm capable of. And I'm, just running on a team of friends. Right. So we really don't, we're not going to change where people are streaming music or anything like that. So I think for me, I'll focus on making the music first, and then I'll think about those decisions later, when they come up. But usually, honestly, it's pretty obvious what to do, and there's only really one choice at a time. Like right now, to be more specific, if you make a music video, it's going to go on YouTube. Yeah. So or if you want it to be on Facebook, you'll probably want to upload it to Facebook, that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. Do you see any new like apps or websites for music specifically that can help you get the word out, or is it mostly just about Spotify, YouTube, SoundCloud, these sort of things?
Well, yeah, I would say they do have their ways of helping people discover new music, which is cool. A lot of people lately have been telling me they just found me on Spotify through the weekly recommendations. Oh, yeah. So that's really cool. But I think the more effort the listener puts into actually finding new music, there's so much out there that you can find. You just look for related artists, look for a label you like, look up the artists on it. You just got to search for it. Right. Just like finding anything else.
Right. And just really quick here before we end. So how does the creative process change, I guess, when you're shooting a music video? You've got a bunch of awesome music videos out there, and they're so well produced.
Thanks.
When I was doing my research, I couldn't believe how well produced they were.
Oh,
they're awesome. So
yeah, shout out to Brian Petchers, who's the director.
Yeah. How do you think about that after you've finished writing a song, or do you think about it as you're writing a song?
It's definitely very visual for me when I'm writing, and I have a lot of images already in my head. And as much as sometimes they're impossible to create, but if there's something that can be created, I try to start there with the video and then build the rest of the idea around it. And usually that gives me a really good starting point to come up with the ideas. And Brian, the director, brings these amazing ideas to the table. So I think that it's a really good collaboration in that way. And once again, I try to just use the resources I have around me. Like, those are my little brothers acting in the music videos, and all my friends and everything. Like, they're all shot in my hometown, and we had to like ask the mayor for permission for this, like that kind of stuff. So it's very much just, at the end of the day, you know, you only have so many choices.
If there was like one song or one music video that you'd recommend the listeners check out, what would that be if they hadn't heard of you yet?
I would say look up There's More to Life. And if you just look up Dylan Owen There's More to Life on YouTube, you'll see the EP trailer video, which we made to come out before the EP. And I think that's a good example of where things are going to go.
And then I guess finally, if someone wants to become an artist, like you kind of follow in your footsteps in 2017, soon to be 2018, like where would you start? Or I guess another way of asking it is, if you were, you know, in high school now, or even in grade school, and you could give yourself advice back then, what would you tell yourself?
I think my advice would be to only worry about the music. Just only worry about the writing and what you want to document, and making the best music you can. I think that's all anyone really needs to worry about. And if that's your primary concern, then everything else is going to fall into place for you.
Yeah. Well, those are wise words right there. And so where can people check you out if they want more information? You
can look up Dylan Owen Music on any platform, social media, and they'll find me. Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, SoundCloud, any of that. And definitely let me know if you listen to this. Tweet me, DM me on Instagram, message me on Facebook. Let me know that you enjoyed it.
I love it. Well, Dylan, thank you so much. We really appreciate you taking the time, and we look forward to the new album. It's going to be great, I'm sure.
Thank you, Adam. Yeah, pumped to show you, man.
Yeah, thanks. That's it for this episode of The Power of Bold. As always, feel free to subscribe to the podcast on iTunes, Google Play, or any other podcast directory. We'd also really appreciate if you can submit a review on iTunes. If you'd like to access the show notes for this episode or the transcript, head on over to thepowerofbold.com. So once again, thanks for tuning in. See you next time.